Hi, everyone. I'm Denise Kolovosky, the Executive Director of the MSUD Family Support Group. Thank you so much for being here and attending our webinar. On behalf of the board and staff and our volunteers, thank you so much. We are so excited to have such a robust turnout tonight, and we're also going to record the webinar and have it on our website at a later time too. So you can share it with your friends and family. Again, we want to spread the word about our awareness, our education, and most importantly, a lot of the knowledge that we're going to share tonight with our dialogue and questions. So we're so excited to have you here. We'd also like to thank our sponsors. This is a free webinar because of their support. So we'd like to thank the folks at Agiomoto Cambrook and Zoa Pharma, a Pentech company. Without their support, we wouldn't be here tonight, so thank you so much. Our program tonight is entitled Managing MSUD Diets with Family Dinners and School and Daycare Settings. We hope we're going to teach you a lot and learn a lot from our conversations later on tonight. We have dietitians from Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, or CHOP. They're in the house and they're so excited to be here. We have a group of dietitians that will be able to present about MSUD diets, followed by a question and answer session. We're going to have this webinar be about an hour in length, so please mute yourself during the presentation. But later on, you can always pop your questions in the chat or unmute yourself to speak directly to the dietitians from CHOP. Before that, I have a couple of announcements to share, and I did post some things in the chat. I wanted to let you know about our Dishing Out Hope for the MSUD Community Fundraiser. If you go to groupraise.com, you can type in your zip code, and then you dine and donate to support the MSUD Family Support Group. It's really a great way to share a meal with your friends and family and to share your passion for such a great cause. If you have any questions about that, we have more information on our website at msud-support.org, or you can go to groupraise.org.com directly as well. That's groupraise.com. So we also have a great announcement that we're really excited to talk about tonight. And the announcement is that we have a second free webinar thanks to our sponsors. So we have a webinar coming up in December. It will be held on December 17th. That's a Tuesday. And the agenda will be called Living with MSUD, Delicious Cooking Demonstrations and Holiday Ideas. So the time for that webinar will be 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Mountain, and 3 p.m. Pacific. So registration will be in the chat box later on this evening, and it'll be on our e-blasts and our social media posts. Again, mark your calendar. It's going to be held on Tuesday, December 17th, and we're really excited to once again have another free webinar. Well, let's kick things off tonight. It's my pleasure to introduce Michelle Petty. She's going to be our moderator tonight. Michelle has been an MSUD ambassador, volunteering and supporting the MSUD community for many years. She's been a spokesperson for the MSUD community as well, a donor, generously contributing financially, and a volunteer. So she's done it all. In fact, she played a major role as a volunteer helping to coordinate the MSUD meals for the symposium, even working with the chef at the venue at Reston, Virginia, to make sure that the MSUD diet was followed. And it was really an incredible job that she did. And it was no easy task, and we're so grateful for having her help coordinate the important details of that, as well as volunteer to lead and facilitate our discussion tonight. Michelle also has a family with a young adult with MSUD. If you'd like to join and become an MSUD ambassador like Michelle and help further the mission of the MSUD Family Support Group, feel free to reach out to me on social or by email. We're really excited to get more volunteers and hopefully have more webinars and educational sessions like we have here tonight. But it's my pleasure now to introduce Michelle, and she will introduce our presenters and lead the rest of the webinar. Michelle?
Thank you, Denise. Can everyone hear me? Yep. Okay, great. I didn't want to just keep talking if no one could hear me. Thank you for the introduction. I'm excited for this webinar this evening, and thank you everybody who's joining us. I'm going to give you a brief overview of Children's Health Hospital of Philadelphia, CHOP, as most of you already know it by. It was founded in 1855, and CHOP is one of the oldest and leading pediatric hospitals in the United States, renowned for advanced care in treating complex and rare diseases. It's located in Philadelphia, and CHOP provides state-of-the-art facilities and a multidisciplinary approach to ensure comprehensive, personalized care for each child. CHOP's specialized dietitians play a vital role in managing rare metabolic disorders, offering essential guidance on nutrition and dietary therapies to improve patients' quality of life. These experts are also active in clinical research, continually advancing new dietary treatments and protocols for rare diseases. Through their work, they not only enhance individual patient care, but also contribute significantly to the field of pediatric nutrition. Our speakers this evening, I have four. I hope all four are here. I see three in one shot there. But we have Abby Oferlacco. Close.
No, yes.
Okay. She is a CHOP metabolic dietitian. We also have Taylor Miller, who is also a metabolic dietitian from CHOP, and Sean Caro from CHOP as well. And she is a metabolic dietitian. I also have Amanda Andreos, and she is an individual with classic MSUD that will be joining our panel discussion. Okay, so we are going to start off with our presentation from our CHOP experts, our three metabolic dietitians, and I am going to turn over to them for the presentation.
Sounds perfect. Okay. So again, we're the metabolic dietitians at CHOP, and then Susan McGowan is our fourth dietitian, and she helped prepare a few slides for us tonight. But we do really want to focus on the Q&A at the end of this as well. So we want this to be as interactive as possible. And I believe someone's advancing our slides for us. Perfect. So we're ready to go. So again, we prepared a few slides. We separated them into categories that we'll go through tonight, kind of focusing on different stages of childhood from our toddler age all the way up to our teenage years, and how to communicate with both your child, school and daycare, preparing meals at school and daycare, and then having fun with family meals at home. So number one, communicating with your child and others. So child peers, family members, and other, neighbors, teachers, things like that. Next slide. So again, we separated this into kind of age range. So for toddler children, this is ages around 1 to 2 years old. They're still on their formula, but transitioning into solid foods, being more interactive in their meal choices. So we really want to start off by establishing a positive dialogue around low protein foods and formula. So this positivity around this age is really important as they're developing their relationship with their formula and food. At this age, we're not going to be explaining all the amino acids within their formula or, counting leucine with them, but providing very simple explanations of why certain foods might be good for them, particularly around fruits and vegetables. So the colors of vegetables, correlating those with, benefits in the body. So for example, orange foods can help you see in the dark. So like our carrots can help us with our eyesight, or red foods make your heart strong, or your milk or your formula gives you energy. So again, about that positivity and kind of tying those relationships to food. Talking in really simple terms about foods they can and cannot eat. So using terms like safe foods and not safe foods. So even at this age, the child can communicate with their caregivers or people taking care of them. Is this food a safe food or a not safe food? Knowing to go to somebody before they eat anything, and talking in those really simple terms about that. Then we move to our fun age of preschoolers, so ages 3 to 5 years old. We understand that this is our picky eating stage. We deal with this all the time. So we fully respect all parents that are in this stage right now. So for this age, we're starting to talk more with them about understanding their diet and why their diet is so important for their health. So again, that positivity, that'll be kind of a mainstay throughout the ages, but staying positive, ensuring that they know that this diet is not to punish them and it's not their fault that they didn't choose to have MSUD, but we can certainly live with this and make it a positive experience. For kids who are, being more social, especially food being a social environment, encouraging them to be able to say no thank you to certain foods or to ask before eating and not just sharing food without asking. Again, coming at this from a positive perspective, encouraging that communication with their caregivers and just giving them more confidence to be able to choose certain foods. We sometimes use this traffic light analogy in a variety of inborn areas of metabolism, using kind of a red, yellow, and green approach, meaning high protein, mid protein, and low protein foods, not necessarily counting at this age, but just understanding, a meat protein might be a red versus a mid might be like a rice or pasta, and then a low protein would be like an uncounted fruit or vegetable. This just helps them kind of categorize those foods into which foods are uncounted or like free protein versus counted foods. As for mixing formula and preparing meals, this is a really great age to kind of nip that pickiness in the bud and having them participate a little bit in the kitchen. So providing them with simple tasks like pouring or mixing their formula or getting involved in food prep in the kitchen. Then moving on to early childhood. So this is when kids are starting to go to school. We do have a whole section on school and daycare, of course, but specifically about communicating with your child at this age. This is really where we can teach them about MSUD and basic concepts around what leucine means, what protein means, how they might feel if their leucine is high, and specific things about MSUD. Including the importance of their special diet and the importance of taking their formula or supplements or medications. Again, approaching this from a positive way, that our formula gives us energy and the ability to thrive and do the things that we want to do. So for example, if your child loves playing piano or playing sports or playing football, really correlating the importance of their diet and their formula and supplements with those activities that they really like to enjoy. Having them help prepare their formula. We love encouraging this through all stages, in different levels. Maybe when they're a toddler, they're watching you. When they're in early childhood, they might be just pouring the water or something like that. But then at 5 to 8 years old, they may be able to help measure out their formula and help with practicing portioning out foods. So you can teach them how to use measuring cups and spoons starting at this age, just recognizing what different portions look like. As for getting them involved in meal planning and cooking and menus, kids have a variety of different interests in being involved in this, but helping use sample menus and having them practice identifying low protein options. So if they're at school or if they're at a restaurant, really being able to choose, the French fries or the lower protein fruits and vegetables that are available on the menu. This is the age where we can discuss the concept of sick day diets and how they're different from our normal day protein and our normal day formula. Before this age, you might be using sick day diets without them really understanding exactly why. But the hospitalizations and using sick day diets, we know are a part of MSUD management. And so we really want our patients and our kids to be able to understand why we have to use them sometimes.
ESPN is reporting that Tyrese Maxey called out Joel Embiid. The report states that Maxey challenged Embiid to be on time for team events and how his being late for everything is impacting the locker room. Embiid reportedly took that criticism.
John, I think you're unmuted. I don't know if you're able to mute yourself. That's actually one of our physicians. Hi, Dr. John. All right, next slide, please. Oh, perfect. So we also included a slide on late childhood between 8 to 12 years old, because this is when they're starting to find some independence. But we really want to highlight that this is a shared responsibility between the parent and the child. We're not expecting an 8 or 9-year-old to be able to completely manage their diet on their own, but a way to kind of approach this shared responsibility is maybe proposing have them count their protein intake alongside you, or help them pack their lunch for school, so that you're not doing all of it, but then the kid isn't expected to do all of it. So the shared responsibility of giving them options and letting them come grocery shopping with you. And then of course, assisting in preparing their formula, which is a common theme throughout childhood. It's really important as families, we try our best to create that safe space for open communication. We know the diet is hard. We know that. We can't say that we imagine, living with MSUD, but we know even in our office visits that we want to create that safe space for kids to say, when they're having trouble or when they're struggling. So for example, at school, if they're feeling left out, really helping them potentially role play or work through scenarios where they might have to answer questions about their diet or their formula if they're being bullied or teased at school. So I would love to hear any experience, if you've had any experience with talking to a child at this age or even earlier years, if you have any other ideas as well. We do know with restrictive diets that this good and bad food, safe and unsafe food can be really difficult. And so sometimes kids end up food sneaking. And so we want to create that safe space for open communication about when they're craving certain foods, how we can find alternatives and things like that. So it's all about problem solving together at this age, so they don't feel like they're alone. And then one more slide for teenagers. This is the age where they are transitioning more to a little bit more independent care. So discussing with them the risks of elevated leucine and how they might feel. They probably have felt this before. But at this age, there is a risk that they might be on their own and they might have an elevated leucine, without a parent being there. So kids are attached to their phones nowadays. We know that, and we really lean into that for some of our recommendations. So having that emergency letter on their phone, having even like a medical ID bracelet or like the emergency contacts on their phone, and then saving those phone numbers in order to call in an emergency, having everything easily accessible is really important. For this age group, so 12 to 18 years, again, different levels of interest, of course. We have some 12-year-olds who are wanting to cook everything, but then we have some 18-year-olds that don't want to cook anything at all. So really collaborating with them to help plan and prepare meals themselves and being realistic about this. So maybe only 1 to 2 nights a week. They want to make suggestions for a family meal that's adapted for them, or maybe every night of the week. So it really can span, the gambit here. Encouraging them to communicate with their healthcare providers during clinic visits. We always really try to engage the child in this, even earlier than 12 years old, but not trying to speak over your child during those visits so that the child can really express some of their concerns. And then also just talking to your child about those recommendations for any changes. You might be making a lot of the changes with regards to formula or counting protein, but making sure they're aware of what those changes are and how they can help manage their MSUD from that point. Next slide. As for spanning a life, about talking to child's friends, so peers and then family members. So this could be like extended family members that may not spend as much time with you, or any, grandparents or aunts or uncles that might be preparing meals that they might not be fully aware of MSUD. So number one is create a space for peers and family members to ask questions about MSUD. So we're approaching Thanksgiving, we're approaching Christmas, really reaching out to people in advance that might not know about MSUD and providing a safe space for them to ask questions and not feel like anything is a silly question, because you're providing that space and ability for people to ask questions about it. This next one is really big, which is discouraging negative comments about formula and low protein foods. You know, during Thanksgiving, you know, not saying things like, "Oh, it's such a bummer you can't have this turkey," or you're for like making negative comments about the formula can really take a toll on a child's relationship with their diagnosis. Discouraging offering children with MSUD a higher protein food, even if it's just a taste. So we sometimes see this, you know, I'll use the Thanksgiving example as well, as an example. But turkey is definitely a higher protein food, higher leucine food. So even if you're providing a little bit of turkey as just a taste, that child may love the taste of turkey and want more, and then it turns into potentially a food sneaking behavior. So really just trying to stay within your dietary guidelines as consistently and reliably as possible. This goes alongside not using those unsafe foods as treats or rewards either. So just trying to stay more consistent and reliable within their diets, so that we're not providing these foods every once in a while. For family members, we do run into this last bullet point as well, explaining to them how an MSUD diet may be different from a vegan or vegetarian diet. So certain products that are used in vegan and vegetarian diets may not be appropriate for MSUD diets because, for example, not to use brands or anything, but you know, Morningstar Farms or any of those vegetarian type proteins can still be extremely high in protein because they oftentimes use soy or corn-based proteins. So really encouraging family members to not push those foods because it might not be within your protein allowance. So these are just little tidbits that we've picked up over the years in clinic and how to talk to family members and peers about the MSUD diet. Helpful phrases, we put them on the screen here. I'll highlight the last one I think is really nice. I drink a special milk, which is like a vitamin drink. It gives my body good things that come from foods that I cannot eat. So this might be a phrase used between like a 3 and 5-year-old as they're trying to explain what their formula is in a positive way, instead of focusing on maybe the taste or the negative components of their formula, focusing on the positive parts of it as well. Number one is the no one can catch MSUD. People are born with MSUD. That might be a common misconception when you're talking to someone like at a school or a classmate or something like that too. We can go to the next slide for the sake of time.
All right, so our next section is communicating with your child's school. So first off, when you're meeting with your child's school, this can span any age. So when a child's going into a new school, whether that be daycare, elementary school, middle school, high school, you want to explain to them what is MSUD. Your child may be the first child they've ever had in their school or in their classroom that has MSUD. So really identifying who are the key stakeholders at the school that you need to talk with and making sure that they have the information on hand, both speak to them verbally and have it written down of what they need to know about your child and your child's dietary management. So this could be the principal of the school, the director of school nutrition, the kitchen manager, and obviously any teacher that is going to have your child in their classroom. You can ask your medical team for a letter to provide to your child's school. So this is something we commonly do for our patients all the time. We're writing letters just to help better explain what the child's dietary management is and what different accommodations they may need. There are things called a 504 plan or an IEP in the United States. So these are different plans that your clinic social worker might be able to help set up. So definitely connecting your patients, your children with getting connected with the social worker at your clinic is definitely helpful in helping communicate a lot of these different messages to your child's school. Also explaining to the school the importance in being notified that day if the child does not eat something that they should not have. So this can be more important in the younger ages. So like daycare, kindergarten, elementary school, if your child accidentally had, like, say, a cupcake or something that they shouldn't have had from another child bringing in like a birthday treat, it's letting them know that it's not something they need to hide from you, but it's very important that you were told immediately about that. And then also making sure that all adults interacting with your child are aware of the different signs and symptoms of elevated leucine levels. So you know best what your child presents as with elevated leucine levels, So explaining to your child's school what that looks like. For dietary accommodations, so you can talk to the school about the ability to send suitable meals and snack replacements and to be notified of any special occasions so that you can provide low protein alternatives. So for younger kids, this can be common with like birthdays coming up. So asking the teacher if they know of another kid is going to be bringing in a birthday treat so you can send in a low protein equivalent. Another accommodation can be asking for either refrigeration access and also access to a microwave. So kids can be very temperature sensitive to accepting their low protein foods or their meals in general to make sure they're eating the foods that are being sent. So seeing if these are accommodations that the school is willing to make for your child. Another common one we run into is the ability to drink formula either in class or in the nurse's office, whichever is more the comfort ability of your child, whether they prefer to just be able to drink it throughout the day or they rather have a set time where they go to the nurse's office and drink it. Asking the school if they could provide school lunch menus in advance so that you have the time to look over that menu and you can work with your child if they want to purchase the school lunch to identify things that would be appropriate for them to purchase. This can also be helpful in communicating with the school to see if you're noticing there aren't too many options available, if there are ways that they could incorporate more low protein options for your child. Another one can be especially, just one more on there for daycare setting is more important. Having food sent home that's not eaten, because it can be challenging when your child's not able to really communicate to you how much that they ate that day, that you're able to just visibly see that food come back. So, you know, they only actually ate X amount of their protein allowance at lunch. So I want to add in more with their dinner. And you go to the next one. So the next one is discussing meals at school and daycare, just kind of different tips and tricks of ways to send meals that kids are going to eat. So we additionally broke these sections up also into some age ranges. So the first one, we grouped together the toddlers and the preschoolers going from like 1 to 5, so more that daycare stage. We love using bento boxes and like silicone muffin cups just to make it kind of fun for kids. They kind of look like their own self-created Lunchable. This way it can be very easy just to kind of add different foods together and you don't have to worry about, is this like a complete meal? It's kind of like a collection of snacks that comes together as a full meal for them. Another great idea is cutting sandwiches or even fruit and vegetables into fun shapes. There's tons of, if you go on Amazon or lots of other sites, little different shapes and cutouts, and you can even, there's some safe ones for when children are a little bit older, like the 3 to 5 range, that can kind of help you cut them out with you. Aim for finger foods. So sometimes using utensils at the stage, kids still aren't the masters of that. So making it easy for them to eat these foods at school, since they may not have that one-on-one attention of a teacher being like noticing, oh, they need a little bit more help with their fork. So making it as easy as possible for them to eat those foods. Having a mix of new and preferred foods. So definitely not sending a lunch with all new foods for your child at this age, because that could be very disappointing and daunting for them as they're looking at their lunch and they're like, I don't know what any of this is. So at least there are some foods that you know they're going to eat. And then you can make up the difference at the end of the day when they get home if they did not eat the new foods you offered. And then it's also totally okay to incorporate pre-packaged foods into your child's lunches. So it doesn't always have to be this perfect, fresh lunch packed. We know that it's difficult, especially for busy parents trying to create a fresh lunch every day. So you can add in different snacks along with other fresh fruits and vegetables, like fruit snacks are a big hit for us. So meals at school, we grouped together the ages of 5 to 12 for early and late childhood. So a good tip is matching the school lunches. So Taco Tuesday, Pizza Friday, if you know those are coming up, you don't want your child to feel left out that they can't eat those things. So try to make a low protein alternative for them to bring to school. Also, talking to your child about what low protein options are sold at school. So even if you aren't intending for your child to purchase lunch, there are a lot of schools now that offer free lunch for all. So your child could be going up and getting lunch even though they're bringing a lunch as well. So it's important to talk to your child about that and to know whether they are getting an additional lunch. And that way, if they do want to go up and get the free lunch, they know what options are on that menu that is good for them, like the fruits and vegetables. A thermos is another good tip for bringing in low protein favorites to school. So if your child doesn't want to be excluded having to go microwave their food, but a thermos can help keep it at the temperature that they prefer it at. Also discussing the importance of not sneaking and trading food with friends. I know we talked about this earlier, but just another good point to highlight, especially for this age range, if we can commonly see that kids are not really telling their parents what they're eating, and they're just kind of asking for foods, but really they're giving all those foods to their friend, and then their friend's giving them something else. So it's good to keep an open dialogue with kids at this age about what are they eating at school. And then for special occasions, not only just providing your child like a low protein alternative, but you can even make more that they can share with the class if they would like to. That way they don't feel as excluded because other kids are able to eat the low protein food that they're eating also. And next one, yep. And then for our teenagers, ages 12 to 18. So this can be a difficult age for getting children to even just eat lunch at school. We typically can see these kids like to just skip lunch. They'll just kind of go throughout their day and just wait till they get home. So really encouraging teens to pack their own lunches the night before, since it can be very hard in the morning when everyone's rushing out of the house. So just having that pre-set up the night before. Discussing the importance of packing a lunch and eating lunch daily with them. So explaining to them how not eating throughout the day can really take a toll on their energy levels, and it's important for them to consistently kind of eat their protein allowance throughout the day. Keeping easy to grab low protein options stocked in the house for them, because a healthy lunch doesn't necessarily have to be a whole sandwich built together or a pasta salad. It can really just be an assortment of snacks that they're able to grab together and put in a lunchbox. Be like applesauce, carrot sticks, grapes, coconut milk, yogurt, gluten, pretzels. And then if your child is participating in any after school activities, really making sure that they are packing their formula and additional snacks for after school, because if they're not eating their lunch and then in addition to that going to some activities after school, that can be a very long period of time without eating anything throughout the day.
All right. Our last section, we're going to talk about family meals at home and, how to make a more inclusive environment within, the family unit, and just some ways to make it, more fun. So first off, just the structure and consistency of family meals. And I'm going to preface everything I'm going to say with, I know life can get very busy and we all have different capabilities. So kind of use some of these ideas and points just to kind of adapt to your life, but we're hoping to kind of to add to give you some ideas and some ways to make it more inclusive. So structure and consistency, eating together as much as possible is really important. There's countless benefits of eating together as a family in terms of just the social aspect of eating and bonding. Having the consistent dinner time. So as I said, life gets crazy. When you have kids in sports, it's really hard to have that consistent dinner time, but just trying to at least come together as a family and, share about your day and enjoy food together as consistently as possible. Letting your child with MSUD help plan the menu for the week. So I know some kids, they don't care. They don't want to be involved, but I think pulling them in as much as possible to help plan the menu, it will set them up for success later in life as well. So even if they're just doing it one day a week, picking the meal for the rest of the family to enjoy, I think it'll be really important for them for setting them up for the rest of their lives. Establishing a consistent protein allowance at each meal. And, this could be different, based on how you manage protein within your family, but I think having the child have some idea of what maybe 1 gram of protein looks like for their favorite foods, having some kind of mix and match menu. So if they're able to say can we eat fairly consistent things, more or less, we like to mix it up every now and again, but you have your favorite foods. So you can kind of know, these starches like pastas, this was what 1 gram portion looks like. And you can mix and match, with your dinner meals, lunch meals, breakfast meals, to meet your protein allowance and split that up nicely throughout the day. And then the last is just knowing the measurements of the serving utensils. So that goes in with planning the meal and, knowing portion sizes. It's also knowing how to measure those portion sizes. Next slide. The other thing is mirroring the family meal. So doing the best to make your best to not separate your child with MSUD out from the rest of the family. I think one really nice idea for doing that is creating family style meals. So something in a where you can have different components of the meal separated out, and you can choose to add like toppings. You have your base. So for instance, like a taco bar or a rice bowl or a baked potato bar, where that base is something that your child with MSUD can have, and then you have all those other additions that may include higher protein and lower protein options, and they have the choice to those low protein options, and the other family members have the choice to choose those low protein options too. So it's a much more inclusive environment. The other piece to that is making the protein more of a side dish. So less, I think, as in the US, we tend to kind of build our meals around our protein. And I think if you kind of switch the way you think and make that vegetable the main focus of your meal, that might help to shift, the relationship that the family has with food, but also make your child with MSUD feel more included in, the main focus of the meal. So the vegetable or the starch. If low protein modified foods are accessible, you can use them to substitute some higher protein products. So for instance, the pasta. So if you have access to the low protein pastas, and you can have like pasta night, you can make the two different versions of the pasta, and you can have toppings that the rest of the family can have with that pasta. And then incorporating low protein foods into everyone's meal. So that kind of ties into the rest of it. We just want to make sure that we have options that the family can share together in that social environment, and make that your child with MSUD feel included. Next slide. Meal prepping. So this is something like, I think, tying back to what we were saying before about, your child being involved in meal prepping. But I think as much as possible, and I know personally that meal prepping can be very hard, but it can really pay off. So having plenty of fresh, frozen, canned fruits and vegetables on hand is huge. So keeping that frozen broccoli, keeping the frozen vegetables, and making sure that, whatever main, like if you're using low protein pastas or some other starch, you have on hand, easily accessible. Like you've come home from sports and you have no idea what to add, at least you have those frozen or canned vegetables to add on top of your starch. Pick one day a month to prepare low protein substitutes in bulk. So one weekend day when you have time to roast a bunch of vegetables or make a bunch of the low protein pancakes, waffles, things that are easily frozen. It's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of energy in preparing meals for the week. And then kind of doing the prep work of building a food shopping list around those meals for the week, which can be difficult, but I think once you set it up, you can run with that. And, as your child likes new things, you can add to your list, but for the most part, you have that staple list that will help free up a lot of time for meal planning, is creating the shopping list. And another, tip is, creating sauces or dressings. So like just rice with vegetables can be pretty boring, and, your child might get sick of it, or, they may not. We know some kids, they like ketchup on their rice, which great. If that works, that works. But you can kind of mix it up a little bit with the sauces and dressings and have things on hand to really help your child, keep that food in the rotation for a longer period of time. Next slide. Another mix it up. I think I talked about this a little bit, but, one food, I think vegetables and fruits are going to be the best example of this. So you can eat them raw, you can roast them, grill them, saute them, you can add them into stews. There's so much you can do with different fruits and vegetables. And then same with, some of our starches too. We can prepare them in different ways, but and then having a variety of spices on hand. So I think that's another thing that we can do and it can be hard sometimes to think like what spices go with what. The internet's a great resource for some of that information, but just making sure that, we're thinking about how we can work with your child to think about things that they want to taste or different flavors that they're interested in, and exploring that. And then equipping yourself with gadgets. So, there's a tool for absolutely everything out there. So you can look at places like Facebook Marketplace or Amazon, or, there's many places you can find these specialty products, but things like spiralizers, then you can make like zucchini noodles or butternut squash noodles. Dehydrators, there's different ways that you can prepare these vegetables and fruits in ways that they can take for snacks. Like, for instance, strawberries, you can dehydrate them and have like bags of strawberries, dehydrated strawberries you can bring to school. So many different things you can do to make one food really span and give them lots of options. Next slide. And speaking of versatile foods, I like to term these like our vehicle foods, because you can add so much flavor to them with fruits, vegetables, sauces. So in particular, potatoes and cauliflower are great because they can be mashed, baked. You can add lots of things on top of them and make that one food a different meal every single day. So we gave some ideas of, what you can do with potatoes, what you can do with cauliflower. If you have any special things that you've done with these foods, we'd love to hear them. And I'm sure other parents would love to hear them. So, and if you have any other like very versatile foods that that you'd love to share with other families, we would love to hear it. Next slide. And this is just a quote, that food is our common ground, a universal experience. So what I was saying in the beginning, that food is a very social experience. And if we're not, putting in the work to include our child with MSUD into that social experience with the rest of the family, it can be a big disservice to, their relationship with food and around it throughout their life. So we just wanted to highlight some of these important things. And I included this last slide. So some of the things we talked about in terms of like how to speak to your child about food, some of the ideas with like the bento boxes. So those Instagram accounts, the Kids Eat in Color, the PKU Lunch Mom, and Organic PKU, they have some really great ideas on composing some meals, talking to your child about food. So we recommend looking into those accounts. And then the School and Meal Resources, so the npkua.org, they have templates for the 504 plans if you're in the United States. So you can look at the templates they have on there, and then just some resources on how to talk to your school and teachers and things like that on the Nutrition Learning Center. So there's some other areas that you can look into that have some handouts and ideas for you to take to other family members and your school. I think next slide. And that's it.
That's how you find us.
Exactly.
That was great. Thank you, ladies. I think that was a wide variety of information that every MSUD parent needs to know. My daughter is 24 years old, but every part of that is very invaluable information. And I wish I'd had this webinar when she was very little too. So we had to kind of muddle through that on our own. I also have on my agenda that Amanda has joined us for the discussion panel. Amanda, is there something specific that you plan to speak about, or are you just here for the Q&A?
I'm here for Q&A, but I can definitely tell you, the more versatile you become with the foods, the more options we have as MSUD patients and living with MSUD.
Well, I do want to introduce Amanda to all of you in case you don't know her. She's a good friend. Her name is Amanda. Amanda, how do you say your last name?
Andreas.
Andreas, okay. She's 37 years old, has classic MSUD, and was diagnosed at 9 days old. And she brings a wealth of personal experience and valuable insights to our discussion today. She does lead a fulfilling life while carefully adhering to her MSUD diet. And she and her family originally are from the Middle East, but live in North Carolina and the United States now. And she is happily married to her husband, Carlos. So thank you, Amanda, for joining the panel. So we do want to open up for some question and answer time right now. If you don't want to raise your hand and unmute and speak, you can type in the chat box, and I'll read the question off to our experts and Amanda as well. So if anybody has a question at this time, if you want to hit the raise hand button, or feel free to unmute and introduce yourself. I thought it, well, okay. Do we have anybody? We got a question here. It says, Amanda, what is your favorite MSUD friendly food?
So the way that I grew up, was my mom used to make two versions of the food. Whatever they were making, they would make one MSUD friendly. So my favorite one, because I love French fries, is something called taco fries. So basically everything you put on a taco, minus the meat, you put on top of French fries. So you'd layer it, stack it. So we're allowed to have a little bit of sour cream. So I toss them in sour cream and layer it with lettuce, tomatoes, onions, low pro cheese, and have at it.
Sounds delicious.
It's really good.
You use French fries for your taco bar.
I feel like we need to have taco fries in our menu next week at home. I thought of a question while you ladies were talking a minute ago. Does Cambrook still have the lunchline program where they can help? Are y'all familiar with it?
Actually, I'm not. No.
Okay, it's been many years since my daughter was in middle. I want to say she was in upper elementary or middle school, and Cambrook had began a program. I think it was called the School Lunchline Program. I'm a teacher, and it is a federal mandated law that schools have to provide food for children. They don't have to eat the food there, but obviously they have to be provided with food if the family requests it. And Cambrook has the Lunchline program where you could go in and set up, choose from menu items and options that they had, and the school would have to provide that food for the kids. I do see in the chat box that Cambrook does have the lunch program still. I see that. Jen, do you have any information you want to share about that?
Just to let you know that it's still out there, and I know that when we saw Lynn at one of the last in-person events, wherever I saw her, she said they had made some updates to it, so it is still out there.
Okay, that's great. It wasn't an option when my daughter was little, and she didn't eat a lot of the low protein foods that they offered on it later, so she didn't love them. But I think if you start young with kids now, they develop that palate a little bit earlier and would be more open to eating them. But I do want families to know that it is a requirement that schools have to help feed your children. Amanda Wilsey, she did ask, what are some brands that you use for low protein foods? I guess any of our dietitians, or Amanda, if you want to jump in and answer on that, what are some, I guess maybe we're thinking from regular grocery stores instead of dietary specialty companies. Is that right, Amber? Yes. So she's hoping to get some go-to brands that y'all like to use.
So for me, I have found Whole Foods has gluten-free bread. It's really good. It's actually the size of actually toast bread. It's compared to the normal size, it's very similar. So you can put cheese on there, and they have Whole 365 does have plant-based cheese. That's the Whole Foods brand. That's what I've been using. I use a lot of gluten-free different snacks that are low, like 1 to 2 grams per serving. I found that to be very helpful. I don't order from PKU Perspectives, but I have before. I'm using Cambrook Mix Quick and Cambrook All-Purpose Baking Mix and eggs currently, and they're really good. I find them really good.
I think some of the brands that we've been going to recently are the Violife. So Violife has the cheeses, and those are incredibly low in protein compared to some of the other low protein cheeses. Jovial brand has cassava based pastas, and those are very low in leucine and protein. So those are some great resources. Obviously, I think Amanda, you mentioned the PK perspectives of the Country Sunrise. We have a lot of families who love the Country Sunrise pancakes. Are there any other brands that you can think of that are
just tagging on the gluten-free breads, like Char is a good one. And then we work with like all financial capabilities too. So like Aldi is a store that we have here in the US that's a little bit cheaper, and they have a lot of gluten-free options and dairy-free options that are great. And Amanda, you're nodding your head. You probably have found a couple there too. Yeah.
I like Aldi. They have cauliflower, like, what are those things called? Cheez-Its?
Yes, yes.
And the cauliflower one, they're actually pretty good. So,
And the Dr. Prager's broccoli bites. So those are a frozen like nugget option. And then Aldi has their version of those too. So those are what I think of.
Dr. Prager broccoli bites. There's something in the
I have a good comment here from Larissa. She says, I want to say we still cut my team's food into fun shapes, and we enjoy cookie butter sandwich and sharing those with others. We've made cookie butter fudge for our classes in the past, also to share as a low protein food. I know the dietitians were talking about if you can send in things that the whole class can share, then they don't necessarily feel excluded. I had another great question here. And it says, is there any risk of protein cross-contamination while preparing at home, no MSUD foods with MSUD foods? Are we worried about, I guess, animal proteins or anything combining with the food when it's being cooked?
I feel like I'm a little more, I think more about it with regard to like stews and things. So if you have like potatoes that have been like soaked in like, if you make like a beef stew or something like that, I'd be a little more cautious about that. But in terms of just cross-contamination of like pan frying or sauteing foods in the same pan, I would be less concerned about any sort of imbuing more protein into the fruits or vegetables or things that you're preparing with starches.
That brings up a good point. I won't go into it for the sake of time, but when sharing MSUD diet considerations, you can always share that it's like an allergy, but it's not it's not an allergy. So that kind of brings up, cross-contamination we think of with like celiac disease or allergies. It's a little bit different than that. So that brings up a good point of like knowing the nuances and the differences between that. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Susan, go ahead and unmute yourself. You said you had a question.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. My question is pretty specific and personalized. So if the nutritionists want to email offline, that's fine too about this. My clinic put me on any supplements thanks to your clinic. They look to your clinic for advice. My problem is my alanine is lowering my leucine, but not my isoleucine valine. And now I can feel the effects. Do you recommend any particular diet changes so this doesn't happen?
I would definitely say talk to your clinic about the diet changes.
Yeah, they will not helpful. They don't know much about alanine.
I think that might be more of a conversation maybe, but I think what you can do is you can talk to your clinic and have them reach out to us with questions. I think that might be the best way to go about it, because then they can have a dialogue with you, and then if they have specific questions about what the alanine or what they think is happening, we can have that conversation with them. So I would say that would be the next step in terms of what you're asking.
Thank you. And my one last question. Have you found that there's any vitamins or different amino acid supplements to add to your diet to help with panic attacks as you age, or if there's any studies being done around that?
That I am unaware of. No, I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Thank you. I know your clinic does a lot of adult studies there. Is any doctor who might be interested in talking to me? I've done a lot of research myself, but my clinic has no interest in anything
Some
else.
other things.
Yeah, I would say you can always send us an email. I would say, and your clinic can also reach out to us too.
Yeah, I don't know if that will. It was hard enough for them to connect to find out enough about I need to put my supplements, but they don't like doing it often. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think we have time for this last question. We're pushing our 7 o'clock time limit here. I do see we have a 9-month-old baby that are having issues with, I would assume, obtaining formula where they live. I'm not sure exactly where. And is there any way you can recommend a good place to obtain formula? I did reply back to the question asking where they live. I know this is a major problem in a lot of other countries. So I'm assuming we're not in, and they're not in the US. Let's see. I haven't received an answer yet.
Denise, were you aware of, I believe one of the centers in the US had a fellow, a metabolic fellow, who then went to open a clinic in South America potentially, but I don't know where this family is from. Oh, it says Mexico. Okay. Denise, was that you? I don't remember. I don't even know if she's...
I'm not aware of that, but that's something we can look into and research.
I think I do.
Maybe you can speak to, I don't know if
Yeah,
we talked about
actually,
our
Jody,
fellows.
I was like, I was about to
Hello.
say your name, Jody. I was like, we were talking.
Yeah, so one of our, oh, sorry, I got an echo. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay, perfect. So hi, I'm Jody. I'm one of the dietitians at Stanford, and one of our biochem fellows works at Columbia now, and he's from Guatemala. So he has an NGO that he helps with down in Guatemala that I know we do send a lot of donated product to. I know Mexico has been a little bit more challenging recently. I've spoken with their clinics, and I apologize. Let me grab that. That is my phone going off. I don't know if you guys could hear that. But I know it's been a little bit challenging. We've had some issues with customs in both Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador. A lot of formula actually doesn't make it over the border if we try to ship things down there. So it has been a little bit challenging from a donation perspective. So I'm afraid I don't have a lot of great ideas about access.
I think that's been an ongoing problem for as long as I've known about MSUD. People have a very hard time getting formula in a lot of areas. And it's not something that, for those of you that don't live in the US, it's not something that we have access to very easily either. We can't go to a store and buy it. It has to be a prescription and come from the companies, the DME companies. So it's not very easy for us to obtain it to share also. So I do hope you know that we're not ignoring the need, because we understand there's a need, but there's not always something that we can do to help. But I think that connecting with other people that have MSUD that live in the area, or at least in the same country you do, might be a helpful resource, because maybe they do know somebody to contact that can help advocate and get the formula that you're requiring for your kid. I'm sorry we don't have a real specific answer to be able to help with that. But I do want to go ahead and respect everybody's time and wrap up for tonight, since we've made it to our hour mark. The expert dietitians from CHOP, you did a wonderful job presenting. Are we going to have access to the slides to share?
Yep, an email will be sent out immediately following this with the slides that will be shared, as well as some other information from Cambrook as well as ZOA.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We really appreciate the time that you took this evening to do this webinar. And if you chimed in late, we are going to be offering another free webinar Zoom on December 17th at 6 o'clock. And this one was recorded, so you'll be able to go back and see the recording from tonight's Zoom. But thank you everybody for making the time to join us. Thank you for presenting, CHOP. We really super appreciate you guys, and always being willing to allow people to reach out to your clinic. It's a really great resource that you provide for all of us. I really appreciate everybody that put this together tonight, and thank you for joining us. Anything else, Denise, or anybody that needs to add?
Thank you to everyone. You know, everyone did a great job, and I think that's what's so important about the MSUD community, coming together, sharing our education, but most importantly, our experiences. So we're just, you know, so thrilled to have everyone involved, and please spread the word about the next webinar. We'd love to see even more people register and attend.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Amanda, too.
This is a pleasure. Yes, thank you, Amanda.
Have a great evening, everybody.
You too. Thank you.